Hola, estamos aquí, como veis, en la Sala Becool y hoy vamos a hacer la primera entrevista para el Nerdo. La entrevista con Ken Stringfellow, que acaba de sacar Dancing in the Moonlight. ¿Quién es Ken Stringfellow? Alguien lo conocerá por sus proyectos de Poses, cuando estuvo con REM, con su proyecto de Disciplines, pero ahora quiere girar en solitario. Y hoy, 11 de diciembre, con una rasca que pela, tenemos a Ken Stringfellow en la Sala Becool. Ken Stringfellow ama al Nerdo. What did it take so long to release a new solo album?
Well, I guess I wouldn't necessarily put it that way. I haven't. That sort of sounds like I've been doing nothing or working on it for 8 years, and neither of those is true. I work a lot on many different projects. Perhaps I'm guilty of not putting enough focus on my solo work in the past, because actually I think it's closest to, for my money, I think it's like the best thing that I do. I think it's the most true and the most individual, and therefore is the most unique art form that I do in music, you know. But that's my fault for not doing it more. But in the meantime, I've been making so many records. You know, I make, I don't know, 12 to 15 albums a year, every year, with people as a producer or as some kind of collaborator or whatever.
Yeah, you never stop. But talking about your producer skills, you produced Damien Jurado lots of years ago, and it's blow my mind. But which is your favorite work as a producer?
Well, that's a really good one. I will say the Damien album is maybe the first thing I did that was like really technically on. Like I was very much learning when I started to engineer records in 1995, and I recorded that album in 1998. By then I'd learned a few things and sort of gotten more comfortable in the studio. So that's a really good benchmark, that one. Some of the things I've been doing lately, where I've learned even more and really gotten into it. And I think, you know, back then in the late 90s, I would produce 2-3 albums a year, you know, this kind of thing. And now I'm like doing them like nonstop. And so, of course, one assumes that the skills will go up if you're practicing that much. It should. So I think some of the things I've done lately are really, really cool. I'm really into the, I didn't produce it per se, but the mixing I did was very radical in changing the tracks, actually, and arranging. This album by Olivia that just came out, band from Alicante.
Okay.
It's really great. O-H, L-I-B-I-A, exclamation point. The album is called Number 2, Numero Dos. It's really, really good. They put out on a small label from here, I think. I think it's a Barcelona label. They're really good. That's good. This album I worked on by a Dutch singer named Carice Van Houten. That you can get on iTunes and Spotify. That's very good too. And actually, that's a lot of the same people who worked on my album and also done at the same studio I did my album. So they're kind of cousins.
And talking about your connection with Spain, right now you live in France, in Paris, but you're almost a Spanish citizen. Tell me about this connection or this relationship with our country.
It's a curious one. I mean, of course I love coming here. There's many wonderful things about the culture I like on many different levels. And the different subcultures that exist, both in terms of sociologically and regionally. You know, there are many interesting distinctions to be found here in this big land. From a musical point of view, I guess there is a relationship in the kind of what people key into in what I do. I guess is the kind of melodic way of expressing passion, as it were. I mean, I'm sure that hardcore music is popular here too, and death metal, you know, I mean, has its fans around the world. But here there's I don't know, people have always jumped on the melodic aspect of what I do, mixed with the fact that, you know, it's not emo, but it has soul, as it were, you know, what I do. And I think that that just gets people off here. By comparison, in the States, like, I find the music that people are really into in terms of indie rock to be very intellectual, and too much emotion is considered too messy. It's not cool to get too passionate, which is a pity, because that is kind of where I'm at. You know, I'm a passionate guy.
Okay, two questions. Talking about hardcore, you were in Lagwagon.
Yes.
This is a sad question, but I need to ask you. And what do you feel when Tony Sly from No Use for a Name passed away? Do you know these guys?
Yeah, I didn't really know him well, so it didn't strike me as like it might, you know, someone who's really close to that band. I had met him, but I did not really. We were not like buddies or anything like that. Of course, it's sad. In fact, the weird thing is, you know, when Derek from Lagwagon passed away, nobody told me.
Wow.
I read about it like in a Wikipedia entry, like quite a bit later, and he was kind of the reason, even though he wasn't in the band when I was in the band. Okay. He's the guy that turned everybody on to the Posies, strangely enough. So I felt connected to him in this way. And I never really got to know him very well either. I mean, he had his problems. That's why he died young. Mm-hmm. So he was kind of, you know, I met him a few times. He was around when I was in Santa Barbara recording with them, but kind of would disappear. And it was kind of odd, but I felt connected to him just because of that. I knew he was a real fan, and that, you know, and then that I mean, Joey Cape is legendary as a not very good emailer, but this was like, dude, you didn't even drop me a line to say, by the way, I thought you should know. Kind of, I mean, I'm sure I'm not in the top of his email list, but still, it's kind of, that was weird. And then I read about it, and I was like, it was one of those things because it was so unknown to me that I felt like it's like coming out of a blackout or something, or like I had amnesia. Like, how could I have not known about this? But the fact is, he wasn't active enough in music to have really, he didn't earn even like a, you know, a newspaper article, really, sadly. You know, he's just one of those dudes that was very talented and was too fucked up to really see it through.
Okay, and before talking about your new album and talking about indie, what is your relationship with the Posies? Because it's like, from a fan view, it's like a love and hate relationship during the whole year.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a relationship that long, it has been many things, you know, up and down through many things. I think, I mean, John would tell you his personal side of it, you know. From my personal side of it, you know, I went through a long period of having John be very weird. Okay. And I think he was really into drugs and things too. And just, you know, for many, many years in the late 90s, he was like a non-entity, impossible to communicate with, impossible to call. He wouldn't even answer his door. He was living like a shut-in. And it's strange, but that period is long ago. But it's hard. It's like if someone's been like an alcoholic, for example, you can think like, okay, so at some point, what if they like decide to have a beer and then they're back in the gutter again tomorrow? You know, like, I'm always a little bit like, I can't put too much faith in the situation. Not that I think John is going to end up like a drug addict again. I really don't. But I guess that situation is hard for me to. It's hard to see it new, you know. It really is. It's like when you have a long relationship and you come back to it after some time away. I mean, it's hard to start it again. Okay. You always have the old stuff hanging around in there. It's really a pity. So in that sense, it's my own fault too. But it's hard for me to get the situation to grow. Okay. I think we did. You know, I think musically on the last album we made a lot of real interesting development. Personally, I think we have too. I think John is in a much better place than he was, but it still always has a weird old feeling to it. There's still something there, like that maybe that will never really. It's always an uneasy piece in a way, you know. Like because the only thing that we've done over time is get more different. And I think that might be the key. The key is that, you know, I'm always working on all these different projects, and those projects bring me lots of people. And I'm sure John has his things too. And as I develop these whole new musical worlds, some of them are just really satisfying and amazing and stimulating, and they bring a lot to the picture. And it's sort of, I always feel like I'm stepping backwards when I play with the Posies into something very familiar and very cool, and the guys are great, and I love them all. But it's both in terms of what I feel we can get out of it and what I think people will typecast us as, that we may never be able to evade. You know, it's hard to get people to listen to what we do with fresh ears. You know, many bands get lazy. You know, they start making the same record over and over again. So many of them do it that many times when you're an older band, people just assume that you're lazy. They don't even listen. They go, okay, they're old, so surely their new record has to suck. It's just, even with this album of mine, you know, it's hard to get people to see this as a fresh, new thing. This should be like my getting boring period or whatever, and it's really not the case.
And why you choose to put Dancing in the Moonlight? It's a mind game word or something like that, because dancing is it's an artist and a place in Germany, and dancing,
Poland. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, as I've said before, just having this bad joke in a way as a title is kind of my Kevin Ayers moment. That's totally the kind of humor that he has put on albums and things like that. There's that. But Danzig is really nothing to do with Glenn Danzig, who's just stealing the name of Gdansk in German for his own purpose, because Germanic imagery and Wotan and all this stuff is so scary. But Gdansk, Danzig, the place, is a really interesting historical entity. Now it's just a city in Poland and has been, you know, since the end of World War II. But between the wars, it existed for a while as a place belonging to no country, because after World War I, everybody had been fighting, and it was decided by the League of Nations to say, okay, Danzig is separate. It gets to be its own. They can speak Polish, they can speak German, they can speak Yiddish. You know, they could be Orthodox, they could be Catholic, they could be Jewish. There was kind of it was a little bit of many things, and it was nothing. It wasn't part of any country. It was its own unique thing, and that's the nation of Ken Stringfellow is like that. It's like this little place with a lot of different components that isn't. I'm not really American anymore because I don't live there, and I spend so much time away. I'm not French, even though I live there. I'll never really be French. I'm not really Spanish, I'm not really Dutch, but I spend lots of time in these places, and I have it all there in me, but at the end of the day, everywhere I am, I'm kind of like an outsider in a good way.
And tell me about recording the album in LA, Seattle, and also in Mumbai.
Yeah.
Tell me about the experience in Mumbai.
Well, see, I went there and played this year. I did an Asian tour. I played in Bangladesh, I played in Bhutan, I played in Laos, I played in the Maldives, Sri Lanka, Dubai, etc. I'm sure I'm leaving something out, but anyway, India was part of that, and while I was there, I wanted to do some recording, but in the end, it took a little more. It was a bigger project than what I had envisioned, just dropping by a studio and getting my hard drive up and going, okay, let's do some jamming. The engineer, Ricky Deb, that I met, who was recommended to me by another colleague, he said, okay, come to the studio, let's talk, let's listen to your stuff, and then I can think about it. We're not going to record today. And I was like, that's cool. And so, you know, we listened to some of my tracks, and we talked about it and talked about who would be good, and then, you know, drew up the big list and cut down to a smaller list, because actually the Bollywood people are really expensive to work with. So we made it we kind of said, okay, we can have like A list or B list, and let's like we whittled it down to something that was reasonable for me. And then he said, this will take a couple of weeks for me to find a date, because they're all busy and I just have to grab them when they're available. I throw them in here and record, and that's how it worked. So it wasn't until much later that in the end, I think it really wasn't until I went to LA for the mixing in March that I actually got the tracks and heard them while we were mixing and putting them in, and it was a great surprise. But I was there in January. The bulk of the album was made in Brussels, actually, at this great studio called ICP, and almost everybody who appears in my album is Dutch, because I'm very involved in a lot of projects there, specifically with another producer named J.B. Myers, who of course appears on the album. So there's string players from Holland and horn players from Holland and all this stuff. There's some singers, etc. I did a little bit of stuff in Seattle just because I was there in December doing a movie soundtrack, and so while I was in the studio when everybody went home, and like, hey, I'm going to play organ on this song, woo! And we got Charity, who sings the duet with me, Charity Rose Thielen from the band Head and the Heart. Yeah. She did her bits, but I wasn't there when she did her bits. Okay. You know, and I wasn't there when the strings got recorded. A lot of these things happen via my instructions, and then you get the tracks. This is a pretty typical way to do records in the modern times, with digital files moving all over. And the LA thing, you know, the guys, the lab who mixed the album, they did a lot of work when I wasn't there, and then I went there in March, and we kind of went through everything and made adjustments that got it to the final picture. Because at one point with mixing, you're like saying, okay, can we move the voice up 1 dB? And that's dumb to do it over email like 100 times. Yeah. It's just better for me to go to LA. And I did some of the last vocals there as well. But they also recorded the opening song, Jesus Was an Only Child. That came out of a jam that we did together. And they play lots of things on the record too. I just don't know what it is.
I want to ask you a lot of things, a lot of questions, but we don't have enough time. But
well, I mean, if you guys are sticking around, I mean, I just need to eat. Maybe we can do some more later.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to make my last question.
Okay.
You talk about lazy bands.
Yeah.
I don't want to say any name, but I'm thinking about lazy bands that you are in. You talk about people that are into drugs or in strange situations. Yeah. Everything that you went through as a musician, it's why you currently are workaholic?
Oh, well, maybe, but I'm just, you know, I like to learn, and the more I work, the more I learn, so there's that. I am really into, I think the best thing that I can do is work on music. I mean, it is what I do. I'm a musician. This is what I do. In that sense, you know, the idea of doing something else for my leisure time isn't really, I do it, you know, I mean, I do take some time off every year in the summer, and I actually do it properly. I go and, you know, we have a beautiful house on an island on the beach in France, and I spend time with my family and hang out and eat and drink at leisure and sleep in and whatever. That's all great, you know. I think, but everything, you know, that's what I really do to entertain myself is create things, you know. And when I'm working with people, we're creating together. That's like the most fun I could be having. Or playing a show too. I mean, that's fun too. A workaholic, maybe, but it's better than sitting on your ass. It really is.
How do you find yourself?
How do I find myself?
No,
I just like wake up and touch my nose.
Define in 1 word or 3 words.
Busy guy.
Okay, thank you. Okay.